This week on Crime and Conspiracy, we cover the 9/11 attacks and how they reshaped the world. The subject remains a focal point of discussion and debate in the 21st century.
What we'd love to bring to you, though, at this early stage, we believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
You'd expect hustling and bustling during a normal summer day in America. What you won't expect is terrorists part of al-Qaeda hijacking for commercial planes to carry out suicide attacks. The terror began when two of the planes were flown into the World Trade Center in New York. A third plane hit the Pentagon outside Washington, D.C. The passengers and crew of the fourth plane decided to fight until their last breath, and it was downed in a field near Pennsylvania. It has been said that their final target was the White House, so keep watching to learn how the resilient passengers of the fourth plane thwarted the hijackers' aims. More than 2,750 people were killed in New York, 184 at the Pentagon, and more than 40 in Pennsylvania. At the end of the video, we'll share the story of a survivor, Lauren Manning, whose body burned down 80%. Luck favored her as she managed to survive for her 10-month-old baby boy. A plane packed with 60,000 liters of fuel crashes into the 80th floor of a skyscraper building. It instantly killed hundreds of people on that floor and left others trapped. And that was just a wake-up call to the horrors ahead. Get ready for the full story of 9/11, a day that shook us all. That terror attack became the deadliest attack in US history. Shouts, terrors of tragedy, prayers, and panicked sprints flooded in before the second explosion 17 minutes later. A second plane containing 65,000 liters of fuel slammed into the South Tower. The top floors of the Twin Towers were peeling away like distorted Lego blocks. The structural steel of a skyscraper built, supposed to withstand winds over 200 miles and strong earth motions, couldn't manage to survive the tremendous heat generated by the burning jet fuel. Those planes didn't just strike the heartland of America, the world itself trembled in resonance. Almost half the world watched those horrifying scenes on their television in a shocked and anxious state. The whole Twin Towers and its surrounding area were called out as Ground Zero. It took the authorities 9 months to collect the debris. Smog and fog covered the city for 90 days. Meanwhile, another American Airlines Flight 77 circled over downtown Washington, D.C. for a few minutes before crashing into the giant concrete building of the U.S. Department of Defense, the Pentagon. That was the third attack in less than 60 minutes. All 125 military personnel and civilians were killed in the following incident, along with 64 passengers aboard the flight. Flight 93, California-bound plane United Flight 93 was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. Because the plane had been delayed, passengers on the flight were aware of the New York and Washington incidents. Knowing that the aircraft was not returning to the airport, a group of passengers and flight crew decided to fight. One of the passengers, Thomas Burnett Jr., told his wife over the phone that, "I know we are all going to die. There's 3 of us who are going to do something about it." He didn't forget to express his love for his wife. His last words were, "I love you, honey." Another passenger, Todd Bremer, was heard saying, "Are you guys ready? Let's roll over an open line." It has been said that the US military aircraft were in the air to bring down the hijacked plane. Before this happened, passengers fought the hijackers. The plane then flipped over and sped towards the playing field near Pennsylvania. All 44 passengers lost their lives in this heroic act. The 19 hijackers were terrorists from Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries. They all were related to the same terrorist organization, al-Qaeda, and their main motive was to retaliate against America for support of Israel and their involvement in the Gulf region. Some of the terrorists had lived in the United States and had taken flying lessons at American commercial flight schools. The terrorists managed to smuggle cutter boxes and knives through security at 3 East Coast airports in Boston, Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. and Newark International Airport in New Jersey, and boarded for early morning flights bound for California. The flights were chosen because the planes were loaded with fuel for the long transcontinental journey. Soon after takeoff, the terrorists took all control, transforming harmless passenger jets into guided missiles on a mission to kill innocent civilians. America was grieving the loss of innocent lives. As darkness fell, President George Bush spent the whole day being shuttled around the country because of security threats. At 9 p.m. that day, while delivering a televised speech, he said, "Terrorists can shake the buildings, they cannot shake our enthusiasm." He also declared a zero-tolerance policy against the terrorists and the minds who planned deadly attacks. In less than a month, President Bush announced a war against global terrorism. Known as the longest war in history, it cost more than a total of $8 trillion in debt that American generations will pay for. The terrifying war left thousands of U.S. troops killed, and hundreds and thousands of civilians lost their lives in the name of fighting against terror. America suspected Afghanistan and Iraq as the center of terrorism because of the presence of ongoing illegal and terrorist activities. Osama bin Laden, the leader of global terrorism, was found to be hidden in Afghanistan, and the Taliban government refused to hand him over. In the first decade of the 21st century, one name stands out as a dark thread: Osama bin Laden. Born into a billionaire family established in Saudi Arabia, bin Laden's journey began far from the shadows of terrorism. In 1978, he graduated in economics and business administration, an ordinary man on an extraordinary path. The spark that ignited bin Laden's transformation: the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. Fueled by a sense of injustice, he channeled his anger into funding Islamic organizations fighting against the Soviets. By 1988, with the Soviet forces defeated, bin Laden established al-Qaeda, an organization driven by a fervent vision of jihad. Money flowed, and like-minded individuals across continents joined the cause, a holy act with a sinister twist. Al-Qaeda expanded its reach, establishing centers in Afghanistan, Sudan, and Pakistan, launching attacks worldwide. The world started to feel the ripples of a growing threat. From 1993 to 1999, bin Laden attempted attacks on U.S. soil, but his impact was limited. Returning to Afghanistan in 1996, bin Laden found an ally in the Taliban, solidifying al-Qaeda's stronghold. It was here that the seeds of a sinister plan were sown: the Twin Towers plot. As the world slept, al-Qaeda executed its unthinkable plan on the 11th of September 2001. The day that changed the course of history and left an indelible mark on global peace. He was the most wanted man by the FBI. A reward of $25 million was fixed on his head. In 2004, on a televised recording, bin Laden accepted al-Qaeda and his involvement in the Twin Towers demolition. 9/11 was itself a tragedy, but wars after the incident were more dangerous tragedies, resulting in the loss of more human lives. Moving forward, on the 7th of October 2001, America started bombing the soil of Afghanistan, and ground forces fully equipped with the latest weapons arrived days later. Their main agenda was to demolish al-Qaeda and its territories, as they were considered the threat to global peace. Soon the US diverted from its original mission to now disarming the Taliban. America successfully recovered half of the area of the country from the Taliban. They lost control over the capital, Kabul. The al-Qaeda group was weakened. Everything was smooth. And now this was the perfect time for America to execute its plan. The mastermind of the attacks, Osama bin Laden, escaped to the neighboring country Pakistan. But the war blew up in the face of America and dragged on for more than 2 decades. The American military decided to stay. It has been said that the war against the whole nation was an overreaction from the American side. Possessing the world's mightiest military armed with cutting-edge weaponry, they could swiftly dismantle terrorist groups. However, they opted for a path that resulted in additional tragedies and horrors. Jason Dempsey, a former army major, described his situation in Afghanistan as, "We were hunting down our targets, we were killing, and all things were good in a war zone. But on political grounds, we were lost completely, we didn't know who to kill. The Taliban or the al-Qaeda agents." Another army man annoyingly said, "Most of the people have forgotten about 9/11, I don't know what I am doing here." Looked like America was chasing a ghost. On the 19th of March 2003, American and NATO forces extended their military operations and announced another war. This time the target was Iraq, which was not even linked with the attacks. George Bush and its administration falsely managed to justify their acts. Their main concerns were Iraq had a link with al-Qaeda. Osama bin Laden and dictator Saddam Hussein both were Arab men. But there was no presence of al-Qaeda in Iraq. Iraq needed to get rid of dictator Saddam Hussein. Once he was on the good list of America, he fought against Iran with the support of America. Another one was that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. But the weapons of mass destruction were never found on the ground. President Bush expressed his agony and disappointment in his memoir Decision Points by saying that, "No one was more shocked and angry than I was when we didn't find the weapons." Further expressing his thoughts, "I had a sickening feeling every time I thought about it. I still do." But Bush pursued to justify his brutal act of Iraq invasion anyway because Saddam Hussein was a threat to US security. It shows that this was all planned and propaganda made up by America and its allies. On the 18th of May 2022, while delivering a speech at his presidential library, he accidentally admitted the Iraq war was unjustified and brutal instead of saying Ukraine. Certainly suggests he still has a lot on his conscious mind. The hunt for Iraq was supposed to be simple. The most powerful military in world history with real war experience would go in, kill all the bad guys, and transform Iraq into a democratic, peaceful, pro-American land. But America faced another defeat. The war between both countries changed into an international crisis. It changed both countries. It changed the entire Middle East. The illegal invasion of Iraq by the US Army gave the right to any country to announce a war at any time. Over more than 2 decades, we have seen several incidents on Earth. Nations breaking international laws without any excuse, countries invading others just like with Ukraine. It took more than 8 years for America to leave Iraq without much achievement. Almost 4,000 troops were killed, 300,000 civilians brutally died in the war, and trillions of dollars were expended as fuel in this war. Due to the turmoil and uncertainty within Iraq and other poverty-driven Middle Eastern countries, another terrorist group, ISIS, has risen with its full force. Al-Qaeda and groups have made their roots strong on the soil of Iraq and its neighboring countries, further destabilizing the whole region. Another morning, another shocking news on television. But this time, it was supposed to be a good one. In 2011, after a decade of search operations in Afghanistan and Pakistan tribal border, the American military successfully closed the chapter of the mastermind Osama bin Laden, who was managing his terrorist group while being underground. They killed him in the military operation which took place in Abbottabad, Pakistan. President Barack Obama said, "Justice has been done." Their mission and hunt were now complete. But America had different thoughts. Their machine gun didn't stop. They were still targeting civilians in Afghanistan. There's no full stop. The war continues. In 2013, after almost 12 years of conflict, American President Barack Obama announced to leave Afghanistan forever. Turns out, it took more than 7 years to be able to get out of the war zone. Countries like the US can announce a war in less than a month, but when it's time to go back, it would take ages. In 2021, after almost 2 decades of horror and uncertainty, America and its allies left the grounds. Now the question arises, did America succeed? The answer is pretty calculable. The Taliban are still in Afghanistan, and they've gained control of most of the land. The whole country's function is in their hands. America has no chance to make another stand or statement on the people of their land. Amidst the geopolitical chaos, a glimmer of hope and strength emerges in the form of Lauren Manning. Her story is a true sense of heroism against all overwhelming odds. On that fateful morning, a phone call made Manning late for work. The lady was entering the North Tower, then suddenly everything changed. The first plane struck, and she felt the rush of high-temperature hurricane winds coming towards her to swallow. There was this whir of debris flying, and seconds later this fireball came and hit me from behind and kind of flung me towards the doors. She recalled the incident in an interview. She ended up on a grassy median area nearby, where she rolled around, trying to put out the flames that were consuming her body. In those moments she thought of her husband Greg, and her 10-month-old baby boy, Tyler. "I did not want to die," she said in the 2002 interview. "I prayed to God, I screamed to God to let me live for my husband and Tyler." Manning was rushed to the hospital, and 80% of her skin was left charred. The doctor deduced a 25% chance of surviving, eventually dropping to single digits, but her 10-month-old baby boy acted as her solid will to live on. Lauren was hospitalized for over 1.5 years to cure severe burn injuries, taking several more years to be on her feet back again. Her once comfortable life had suddenly become a living hell. Manning has described the process of relearning in her book Unmeasured Strength as the simplest of activities, basic functions I had always taken for granted, such as speaking, holding a fork to feed myself, sitting up, getting in and out of bed and walking. The book recalls her inspiring journey of resilience and making a life after a tragic incident. As we navigate this complex narrative, the question remains, was the war against terrorism worth it? Well, the answer is pretty subjective. After the military operations against the masterminds of the dreadful incident, the US has not been under another attack like 9/11. On the other hand, it has cost thousands of lives and trillions of dollars. Also, some of the nations are against the US and its government. The US has made enemies out there. Let us know in the comments how 9/11 impacted you and the rest of the world economically and socially, and why you think it happened.
Studio, the World Trade just collapsed. Copy?